Hello and welcome to a video about weight release on your guitar. This video goes out to DJ Mac, who I spoke to in the comment sections of one of my videos, and he wanted to do some weight release on one of his guitars, and we were talking about it, and so I thought making a video about it might help him, but it might also help someone else out there who feels like one of their guitars are just a little bit too heavy. So I'm just quickly gonna go through a couple of different guitars and what you can do to them. I don't really know what kind of model of guitar he has, so I'm just doing going through a couple of guitars and see what happens. Before I start, I just want to mention one very important thing, and that is that if you have a guitar that you really love and you really like the way it feels and you love the way it sounds, but you just feel like it's a bit too heavy, I would say that you probably shouldn't mess with it. Sometimes we find things that are super awesome and magic, but there is something we don't like about it, and we just have to learn to accept the fact that there is something about it that we don't like, because when we start changing things, we might actually remove what is making it awesome in the first place. So just be very careful with this, because you might have a guitar that you love in every way except that it's a little bit too heavy, and you might ruin it and make it into a guitar that you don't like anymore, changing the sound and feel of the instrument by removing the wood. It's something that could really happen, so be very careful and take your time with this and really think about it. But if you have a guitar that you feel is just a fun instrument and you just want to make it lighter and you don't really care that much about it, then go ahead, but be certain that you're not going to regret modding the shape of the instrument. The first one is Stratocaster, and what you have to do is remove the pickguard, and under here you most likely have a bunch of extra wood that you can remove. Just make sure you leave enough space for the pickguard, the edge, and where the screw goes, so that you can put the pickguard over again and cover everything up. And also make sure that when you're drilling and routing out underneath the pickguard, you don't go through the back, because it's really easy to do, especially around here, because it's easy to measure the thickness of the body here and not realizing that in the middle here where the claw is, the thickness is different, and you don't want to go through there. It's one of those things that is not hard to fix, but it will take a lot of times, and it's kind of hard to make it look good. The same thing goes with the Telecaster. You have a bunch of space under the pickguard that you can remove, and you can actually even remove some under the bridge. If you have a bridge like this, you could route out a little bit to make room for a humbucker. You don't necessarily need to have a humbucker to have the routing underneath it. And that's a good way to remove a bunch of wood. It might change the weight of the body, because naturally a Telecaster is supposed to sit really well in your lap, and this might make it a little bit heavy towards the neck because you removed so much wood right here. Another thing you can do, and is one thing that I've done on this guitar, only slightly though, but you can go further with it than I've done it, is you can make a arm carve here. I did it on this guitar because I had a little accident with this guitar, and it had a chip out here that cut my arm once, so I have a scar on my arm for it, and so I had to sand it down and make it smooth so that my arm going against it wouldn't get cut again. So that's why it looks a little bit wonky here, this guitar, unfortunately. But you can do a really nice arm carve, and you can actually even do a really nice belly carve. It might make the guitar more comfortable for you. It's something that a lot of players like, so you might enjoy it, and it will reduce the mass of the guitar, and so you have less wood, so the guitar becomes lighter. The next one is an SG, and now my SD doesn't have a pickguard, but if you have a pickguard, I think you know what you can do underneath the pickguard, because no one is going to see anything. And you can obviously, this will change the way it looks, so you might not want to do it, but you could do a carve to make a armrest, and on the back side you could do like I did and make a carve, a belly carve, and it's actually really nice. I like this SD a lot because of the belly carve. It's one of those things I feel like every SD should have from now on, just because I like it a lot. Obviously, when you mod the body like this, you're gonna have to either repaint the guitar or have a paint that is very close to the original paint so that you can do a color match. I've done videos before about color matching, for example in my Mike Bloomfield guitar build series. You can watch those videos and get inspired, hopefully. Another thing, a lot of the times the SG isn't that heavy and people think that it's heavier than it is because it usually has a lot of neck dive. If you've been around on YouTube for a while, you probably already know about this. And the way I've solved it is that you can drill a hole here and make a channel into the body, and you can actually go as far as to the bridge, but don't go too far. And then you have a channel and you fill it up with lead, and then you plug the last bit up with wood so that you can screw the screw back in. And if you look really closely, maybe you can see that there is actually a thin line in the paint surrounding it. Obviously I did this on this guitar before I painted the body, so it was much easier to hide everything than it is. So if you're gonna do this to a guitar that you're not gonna repaint, make sure that you don't drill a hole that is bigger than the strap button, because you want the strap button to cover up the wooden plug. If you have something like a Mustang, they are really tiny and small, and they're very light for their size and for being made of ash, or at least this one is. So you most likely don't need to do anything to it. But if you want to do it, sorry, I'm trying to be funny, there is a pickguard and there is a bunch of wood that you could remove under it. If you have a Les Paul, you can actually remove the wood underneath here, but I would suggest that you don't, because it's one of those things that are noticeable from some angles. Like for example, if you were to see my guitar from here, you would see under here. So it might not be that nice to do. You could, for example, you could measure out how deep the cavities are in the pickups, and you could see if there is some wood you could remove there. You could do a carve on the back, a belly carve. Just make sure that you think about where this cavity here is, so you don't cut into it, and that you make it wider down here. So basically something like that. You can also do some carving away here, and I mean obviously down here as well. I have been thinking about building a Les Paul at some point and actually do an extra carve here, just because I do like this guitar a lot, but the edge here is a bit uncomfortable on my arm. So if you don't care that much about how it looks right here, I would say that you can actually carve this down and make it more like the arm carve that you have on something like a Stratocaster. Obviously, be careful about doing that, because you are changing the way the guitar look, and it's very easy to remove wood, and you know, mistakes are very hard to fix afterwards. You know, it's maybe do this to a guitar that you really don't care about, just as an experiment, and then if you decide that you really want to do this to your custom Gibson, yeah, you know, then go ahead, I suppose. Jaguars have huge pickguards and a lot of space. You can cut a lot of things away. And the thing you can do to these guitars as well, which I haven't done to this guitar, but I'm thinking that I'm gonna do, because if you look closely at this, it has the arm carve, but it's a very shallow one. And what you can actually do is you can just remove even more. For example, let's look at this guitar. So here's the Stratocaster that I talked to DJ Mac about, and if you look at the arm carve on this guitar, it looks sort of like that, and it could actually, you could remove even more and make it super thin here. And the same thing goes with the belly carve. You don't need to have a belly carve that goes like this, because if we look at this guitar again and we measure them together, you can see that the belly carves are really different. And this one has a very nicer, bigger, deeper carve that sits closer to the body. It's not so thick right here, while this has a very thin and it's still very thick. I would say that this one could really be improved, and so you could think about those things. Remember, if you have a guitar that has a paint that might be really difficult to find, this might not be a good idea, because you're probably going to want to color match things. So make sure that you look for the right paint before you do these things, because it can be devastating to have a guitar that does not look right and has a bunch of weird, crazy things going on. If you have a kit guitar, for example, and you want to do these things to it before you paint it, just go crazy, just go ahead. You can do anything to those because the paint is whatever you're gonna put on afterwards anyway. So yeah, here is my Les Paul Jr. and it's not a very heavy guitar, actually. It's one of my lighter guitars, mostly because of the wood I chose when I built it. But if I wanted to make it even lighter, again, I've said this a couple of times now already, you probably already know what I'm gonna say. There's a bunch of wood that I could remove under here. I could do an arm carve, and I could do a belly carve. You could also do a carve right here to remove some wood, and it might actually even make it nicer for some people to move their hand up like that. I personally like the blocky style of vintage guitars. I know this isn't perfectly correct, but that's part of the build series if you're interested in why it looks like that. Anyway, I hope this helped, I hope this inspired you, and obviously, again, don't do anything to a guitar that you think you might regret. And especially, you know, if it's a guitar that you really, really love. It doesn't really matter if it's a guitar that is super expensive or a guitar that, you know, didn't cost you that much, but don't destroy your favorite guitar because it's a little bit heavy. Maybe just, you know, sit down and play guitar with it or something. I don't know. I hope this helped. Let me know in the comments below if it did, or if you have any questions, either about what I've talked about in this short video or about any of the guitars or anything like that. Or if you want any suggestions of, like, if you have any ideas for videos like this, please talk to me in the comments below. And if you wouldn't mind liking the video and subscribing, I would appreciate it if you did. You don't have to if you don't wanna, but I would appreciate it if you did. Anyway, until next time, stay awesome and cool, and go and weigh your guitars and see if they're really that heavy. Because maybe, you know, what is it they say? He ain't heavy, he's my brother.